In 1989, a whole 3 years after the movie Aliens was released, Leading Edge Games published this modest-looking box. Its contents managed to do something few movie-based board games achieve, even now. Take the essence of the source material and transmute it successfully into paper and card. In fact, it does it so well you can't play this game without quoting lines from the movie at appropriate moments. And trust me, there's lots of appropriate moments. In this rather attenuated box for 1 to 9 players, you get a large colour paper map, double-sided character cards for all the Marines, including Ripley, Bishop and Newt, stand-up figures for all of them, lots of aliens, flame markers and face huggers. Also, there's the Alien Queen and Ripley in the power loader, which is used on the flip side of this card, showing the aliens' combat stats, plus a single 10-sided dice. And before you say anything, yes, it does look like a 35-year-old board game.
5.
We're on express elevator to hell. Going down.
2. 1. Mark.
The game focuses on 3 of the film's significant action sequences, which it calls scenarios. The reactor room, where the Marines encounter the xenomorphs for the first time and discover they should have actually listened to Ripley. The operations room and air ducts, where they find out Burke is not a team player. And the final showdown, Ripley versus the Queen, where Ripley fights the Alien Queen on board the Sulaco, armed with only a power lifter. Luckily, she has a Class 2 rating and access to an airlock. The rules are really well written, despite what first appearances suggest. It's of course helped by the fact the rules themselves are pretty straightforward. They are also packed with quotes from the film, in case you need to remind yourself of them, and even manages some humour. There's also a handy rules summary. Each character has a double-sided card showing you how many actions they can take. They can use these actions to move, aim, or melee. So in this case, Crow here could spend 2 actions to get a better aim and an improved chance to hit an alien with his pulse rifle. This, however, means he can't move until the next turn, and he will want to move, as aliens always get 4 actions and you do not want them to get too close. On top of the rules covering all the usual stuff, including friendly fire, carrying incapacitated Marines and acid spray, some of the scenarios are peppered with extra rules you can introduce to make it even more like the movie. Some with names like the Frost Rule and the Dietrich Rule, or the wonderful Let's Eat Burke. I'll let you work that one out. And if it all gets too much, there's always the petty revenge scenario where you can nuke the site from orbit. After all, it's the only way to be sure. The scenarios can be played standalone or consecutively. So only the Marines that make it out of the reactor room, for example, get to move on to the operations and air duct scenario. Based on my experience, even Hicks and Hudson often don't make it as far as they did in the movie, let alone Vasquez. Burke never ever seems to open the door, and Newt has amnesia about the tunnels. And here's the thing. Every time you play, the aliens appear randomly, so whilst there are some tactics worth adhering to, mutual fire support and sticking close together, everything can go sideways when an alien or two drops right on top of the Marines. And it's this one element that makes the game eminently replayable. Get out of the reactor room with barely a scratch, and this has happened, and it's back to the APC for tea and medals. Next time, everyone is killed except Frost, who barely makes it to the exit.
I say we take off and nuke the entire site from orbit. It's the only way to be sure.
Fucking A.
Oh, hold on 1 second. This installation has a substantial dollar value attached to it.
They can bill me.
A year later, they released this, Aliens Expansion. It was advertised at the back of the rulebook, so it really wasn't a surprise. And it gives you more of the same. Another map, more scenarios including what-ifs, optional rules for things like ammunition and fires, and a small deck of lair cards to check for aliens when you enter rooms. But the cool thing was, all the bits you need were already in the core set, which in turn solved the puzzle of why some of the components never got used in the original game. If you're going to pick holes, the components aren't up to modern standards, and paper maps are so last century. However, the artwork is pretty good, and the photos of the characters, which I assume are a mix of publicity shots and stills from the movie, add a lot to the feel. But it's the often frantic gameplay where Aliens really shines. Unlike the Marines in the movie, you're more often not reacting to the aliens turning up where you least expect them, whilst trying to hold together something vaguely resembling tactics. The game was obviously put together by a team of people who loved the source material and decided not to let the rules get in the way. It's a really clever balancing act, and they managed to pull it off. The best bit, though, is that it does what all great board games do, or should do. Remind us that it's not about the winning, but the taking part, which is handy, as this game can be brutal. You'll be discussing your misadventures on LV-246 long after the box is closed. The only problem now is that it's a rare and precious board gaming gem, so if you fancy a copy, you'll need deep pockets. Particularly if you want the expansion as well, and you probably will want the expansion. Throw in the minis if you're a completist, but to be fair, you don't need them, and you have arguably, and I'm happy to argue, probably, maybe, possibly the best board game based on a movie. See you in the comments.
I guess we're not going to be leaving now, right?
I'm sorry, Newt.
You don't have to be sorry. It wasn't your fault.
That's it, man. Game over, man. It's game over.